Hello there. Thanks for joining this edition of Blue Talks. It's day what, I can't even remember now, of the lockdown here in Lagos. But it's progressive, and we're grateful that I think some of the lockdown restrictions will be lifted. Some of the lockdown restrictions will be lifted in the coming days, and life will begin to return to normal as we know it, or maybe we'll discover a new normal in that process. Today we'll be talking about personal finance and funding during COVID-19 and possibly post COVID-19. Here to have that session with us is a very seasoned finance and information technology leader with over 20 years experience, spanning banking, telecoms, aerospace, and defense industries in Nigeria, the US, and UK. She's currently the head personal banking at Stanbic IBTC Bank PLC. Now, we realize that a lot of people have been impacted by the effect of COVID-19 on the economy, on our lives as a whole. Beyond the health implications, there's also the economic implications or the financial implications for us as individuals. Some people have had to wake up to the stark reality of losing their jobs. Some people have had to wake up to the stark reality of having reduced income, and others have had to wake up to different forms of realities. But today we're focusing on that personal finance bit and funding. So without much ado, I want to hand over to Ruby to carry on the conversation. And I'd like to implore you to sit down, take some notes, and enjoy the talk as we go along. Thank you for joining us today, Ruby. Hello, Ruby, can you hear? Hello? Can you hear it?
Hello, Taiwo. Yes, I can. I think there's a bit of a lag there for a minute.
Okay, yeah. So you can go on now.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you, Taiwo, for the introduction. I think today's session gives us an opportunity to talk about personal finance management and funding in the wake of COVID-19. Nigeria recorded her first recorded incident or confirmed incident of COVID-19 in February. That was on the 27th. And since then, we're about 2 months in, and we're currently recording about 1,337 confirmed cases of people who have been infected with the virus. We've had well over 255 who have been discharged. And then, unfortunately, we've had about 40 deaths. So the impact on us as a nation has been felt, and it's one that continues to have far-reaching implications. In the wake of the pandemic, we did see CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, introduce some policy measures in response to provide somewhat of a cushion, if you would, to businesses and to households and to families and individuals, by way of introducing some measures that would help to alleviate some of the challenges that they will experience during this time. Some of those palliatives include a regulatory forbearance to banks and financial institutions to grant them the ability to restructure the terms of facilities for those who are borrowing customers. They've also introduced measures to consider extending a payment holiday or a moratorium, if you would, to those borrowing customers. And this is a way to kind of help with their cash flow. Now, while these measures have been largely directed at the business level, they do have a trickle-down effect to individuals. And that's in the sense of the fact that an organization that does get some support by way of an extension of their repayment or restructuring of their loan helps to free up their cash flow so that they can then continue to pay their employees their salaries. So that's one way that you feel the impact of these policies at an individual level. The other is that there are quite a number of individuals who as well. And so in the course of doing so, they are also able to apply for any one of these measures, any one of these palliatives as the need arises for them. So the opportunity does present itself both for business, but also for individuals as well. But it presents a real challenge for us as individuals. A lot of us have had to cope with the reality, like you said, and your reality is different. Some people have already experienced reduction in their income due to salary cuts. Some have already lost their jobs. Some who have made substantial investments have lost value in those investments. There's been reduction in purchasing power. So as a result of the fluctuation in foreign currency, you've seen some inflation also set in, and that has had an impact on what you are able to buy with your money. That's also quite a significant impact to a lot of people. There's been disruption of cash flow. In some cases, there are people who had jobs that were very valid and relevant pre-COVID. However, in a post-COVID era, those job functions may no longer be relevant. And so that presents another problem for people. Of course, in the reality of having to practice social distancing, that's a new thing. I recall just, being out the other day, and I had my mask on, and I met somebody that I knew, and I wanted to greet, and it was so out of the norm to not shake or hug. But then I realized that that is our new reality. And so the inconvenience of having to be restricted in your movement and in your travel, the need to have to practice really high levels of personal hygiene. These are all things that are new to us and will form part of our normal in the next few weeks as we continue to go along and ride this storm. There's also the disruption to business operations, the limited investment options. So some of the opportunities and companies that would have been very lucrative to invest in just a few short weeks ago have met with very difficult times in the wake of COVID. And so in terms of investment, they may no longer be attractive for a lot of individuals. And then, of course, there are some of us who have gone to the stores and you don't see the products that you're used to seeing on the shelves. And this is largely as a result of disruption to the supply chain. So that also has been one of the attendant impacts of the day. So the next question is, so then what can we do in response to all of this? What can we do? The first thing that I would say is that it's important for everyone to reassess your spending. You need to prioritize the things that matter and deprioritize the things that do not. You want to focus on food, on health and safety, and then eliminate spend on big ticket items, on luxury goods and services at this time. It becomes imperative for each individual, as well as at a family level, really to come together and to do that assessment together, because it's really about surviving in the coming days and weeks ahead. The next thing that's really important to do is to look at replacing some of the more expensive brands that you're used to patronizing with cheaper alternatives. Not only does that help you in terms of managing your cost, but it's also good for you in terms of availability. So the more expensive brands that you might be used to, your rice, maybe your cereal. There's some people who prefer foreign cereals, breakfast cereals I'm talking about. There's some people who have a preference for imported rice. It's time to really consider the local alternatives. And that will also be a measure that would be prudent to take during this time. The third thing that I'd mention is that, and it's very important, very key, cash is king. Cash is king. You want to err on the side of liquidity at a time like this. It's very important that you keep cash and near cash assets. You will find that the opportunity to do so avails you the ability to make really good decisions. You won't act in panic because you know you have access to funds that can enable you to survive, you and your family, through this period. Something that I'll also mention about cash being king and the need for us to err on the side of liquidity is the fact that for those who have been able to save up a nest egg over a period of time leading into the current time that we find ourselves, it presents them with an opportunity to then take advantage of unique circumstances that may present themselves. perhaps investments that they may not have been able to make in the past because of the high price. Now they can consider making some of those investments. So very important that you keep some cash and near cash assets, so that if things like property and real estate, maybe you've been looking to buy, you don't have a home and you've been looking to buy one but haven't been able to get in the game, now would be a time to consider that if you have the liquidity to support it. Okay, it's also a time to identify opportunities. So, I mentioned the importance of saving, the importance of long-term investment. You can't emphasize that enough. It's a time for you to consider the companies that are going to be able to thrive, both now and in a post-COVID era. We'll talk a little bit about that in the coming slides, just to say, where are the sectors that we expect to continue to see growth? Where do we expect that there will continue to be demand for their products and for their services? Those would be some of the companies that you want to look at investing in for the long term. It's important at this time. I mentioned earlier that there are some people whose job functions may no longer be relevant in a post-COVID world. It's important for them to use this opportunity to retool and to reskill. There have been so many webinar sessions, there have been online learning opportunities, and now is a time for people to pretty much rediscover themselves, identify those skills and those interests, areas of interest, and things that come naturally to them. It could even be an area of, where they have talents, and look at converting those into revenue generating opportunities. I think it would be really important for individuals at this time to consider such measures. Earlier, I talked about what sectors, for those who are to invest, for those who are thinking of what they need to do. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's based on the sectors and the companies where we have seen an uptake in patronage as a result of the reality of the day. The first one I mentioned is in the telecommunications space. So if you look at the demand for airtime top-ups, the demand for data has skyrocketed ever since we found ourselves in a lockdown situation. And as we continue to practice social distancing and self-isolation, self-quarantine in the case that people become infected, the reliance on data and airtime to be able to remain in the position to communicate with people will be there. And so we see that as an opportunity. In telecom as well, technology, information technology, there's also an opportunity. If you look at the collaboration tools that we're using right now, as a matter of fact, a lot of demand will continue to grow in that area as schools take advantage of online learning from home, as employers begin to consider the real possibility of having a lot of their employees work remotely. The increased demand is something that we can expect to see as far as working, collaboratively in an online way. So you have those technology solutions providers who will be able to take advantage of the increased demand and continue to grow their businesses that way. The other one is online and social media. I don't think that one needs too much elaboration. Healthcare and pharmaceuticals also become very important because in this day, it's really important for us to be able to manage our health and our wellness. And so we will continue to see considerable growth in that sector as well. The agricultural and food processing sector is another good one. Not only is there a lot of support from the government in terms of investment in the agricultural sector, I think that what has happened actually provides an opportunity for us to relook our capacity for building the capacity really for production locally and manufacturing locally, rather than depending so much on foreign imports. I think this is an opportunity for us as a country and as individuals to be able to see how we can expand our capacity to produce and to manufacture locally. We certainly have enough demand in country to be able to mop up the supply. So that's an area, a viable sector that I believe is going to continue to thrive post-COVID. Food sellers and supermarkets, those who deal in fast-moving consumer goods would be other areas that we should keep watching out for as well. How are you able to navigate these opportunities, and what are some of the solutions that you can leverage in order to be able to really take advantage? I think that really brings us to the meat of the matter for today, and I'd like to dwell a little bit on this. It's to say, it's really important to build a nest egg. If you don't already have one, I think that is something that everybody should make a priority at this time, to open a savings account if you don't already have one. What it does and why it's different from your typical current account is that it forces that savings culture. And that's because you're able to keep adding money to the account, but then if you make 4 or more withdrawals, then you lose the interest that you've built. And it's really about increasing your yield on that nest egg, increasing your yield on that principal. So opening a savings account is something that would be strongly encouraged during this time. And I think it will form part of your investment and your financial management plans as you go along. And there's a number of different solutions that you can explore for savings. In Stanbic IBTC, for instance, we do have a savings account that's specifically for building up savings for children. It's called a CHESS account. That's a children's educational savings account. It allows you to build towards spending for a child's education. We also have a number of different savings accounts that also help you to build as well. The next solution that I'll strongly encourage as well is the mutual funds. Mutual funds are such a good tool to leverage in terms of trying to build your finances. For those who have participated, Stanbic IBTC Asset Management offers a variety of mutual fund options. Very, very useful. These are pooled funds. You're able to enjoy good yields on them. The Stanbic IBTC Money Market Fund is one that's very popular, very conservative, 100% investment in money market securities. And so with as little, and I think this is really where it strikes home, with as little as 5,000 Naira initial investment, you can get started. And it's about the practice of building up, over a period of time. It really does add up, and we always advocate that people start if they haven't already done so. You might ask, when is the best time to start? And I would say now is as good a time to start as any. Eurobonds provide another option for investment. I would say for people who are a bit more savvy when it comes to investment. These are bonds that are offered at fixed interest rates. They're issued for long term. They're usually foreign denominated, and they're highly liquid because it's about investment in foreign currencies across nations that have very strong currencies. So it's a good option because it keeps the investment quite liquid, so that if you want to come out of it, you can. If you want to buy into it, there's a lot of freedom to do so as well. There are myriad of options. You have the federal government savings bond. This is another one. It's targeted at individual savers, small business cooperatives. Everybody can participate in this. It's usually tenured either for 2 years or for 3 years, and the rates are also quite good. I know the last rates that were published were in March. Due to the lockdown, we haven't seen the rates for April, but I'm sure we'll probably see newly published rates soon. Fixed deposit always remains an option. Fixed deposit is an account type that allows you to set an amount in a fixed deposit account, and then you can enjoy an interest over a period of time. It's usually a 30-day or 60 days or 90 days or 120 up to 365 days. So you can fix your funds and you can enjoy a fixed rate of return on that investment. A lot of people tend to ask about participating treasury. So we have treasury bills. These are federal government instruments, and people can invest in treasury bills either in the primary market, or they can invest through the secondary markets, which is buying off of people who have previously bought. The yields also tend to be quite good, maybe a bit lower than what people have been used to in the past, but this also presents a good option in terms of a conservative form of investment. And one that I would recommend. I made reference to the fact that now is a time to really pay attention to the companies that are going to be doing well, both now and in the foreseeable future. it was really with respect to investment in equities and stock market. There are many people who are very risk averse, and so perhaps they have been a bit reluctant to get into the stock market, and that's certainly understandable. But the beauty of a time like this, though, is that you do find that there could be opportunities to get in a current market such as we find ourselves. I think the key, though, is to ensure that you're paying attention and you understand the performance of the companies that you're interested in, but really look ahead to not only how they're performing now, but how we expect that they're going to perform, and pay attention to those sectors that we expect are going to be growing even in a post-COVID era. The loan offerings also present a good option for those who have strong cash flows. If you're employed in one of the sectors that we mentioned that are likely to continue to thrive in a post-COVID world, I think it's important. You may want to consider leveraging loans and facilities to manage and to augment your cash flow. And so what you can avail yourself of is perhaps a home loan. If you've been meaning to buy a home and haven't had the opportunity to, you have the liquidity, you have the cash flows to back it so that you're able to make your repayments in a responsible manner, then sure, please feel free, approach your financier and see what you can enjoy by way of a facility for a home loan. In Stanbic IBTC, we offer home loans, we offer vehicle and asset financing, we offer credit cards. You can also finance other assets under what we call our PAS scheme, which is a personal asset scheme. And that is definitely an option that is available to you. I keep making reference to the fact that it's important you have the cash flow to support the repayment, because the truth is nobody wants to take a loan that they do not have the capacity to repay. Not only does that have implications for your credit history, your track record with that particular bank or financier that provides you the funding, but it also hurts your credit record and your credit scoring with the credit bureaus, who also get wind of this information, because by regulation, the banks are required to submit that information, make it available to the credit bureaus. So it's very important that before accessing a loan, you've also done the due diligence to ensure that you have the cash flow to be able to support repayment of the facility. Important to consider during this time, and I think that it's something that should definitely be emphasized. I don't think that's an area where we do very well in, and that is insurance coverage. We offer insurance on life, on health, travel. It's very important. What it does is it helps you to manage your risk. It helps you to take care of those things that we tend to take for granted, and which, if there's anything that affects those things, damage through either fire or other mishap or loss of life or anything, then you can be significantly exposed. But this guards against that. We have our Stanbic IBTC insurance business, and that provides you the avenue to be able to explore and see what kind of coverage you can get, either for yourself or for your business, for your properties. Those things are definitely things that you want to consider now, and I think it would be really prudent to do so. We also we feature very efficient claims management process. So for those who worry about the fact that some of these claims can take some time to process, you don't need to worry about that. The team is very well poised and they're able to get through those claims very quickly. So as I wind down to a close, I think there are important notes to hit, and it's to say that, listen, what are the things that we need to focus on during this time? In terms of managing my finances, what are the things that I need to do? Those things have been enumerated to a large extent. Perhaps there's some additional things that you might want to get clarity on. But it's very important that, one, we brace ourselves for the long haul. What we're going through right now is the actual crisis period, but in the aftermath of the crisis, you can well expect that there will be aftershocks. There will be downstream impacts, implications, consequences. There will be things that perhaps we're not even cognizant of at this point. And so it's important that we are aware of that, and that we make the adequate plans in advance so that we're not taken by surprise, we don't run into any troubles. The second is just that. We need to make a plan, but we need to be deliberate about doing that. And so what I mentioned earlier about, taking that time, sitting down, reassessing your finances, very important. But a plan is not so great if you're not able to execute on it. And I think that's the third and final point that I'd like to make. Once you've put together your plan, engage with your financial institution or your partners, if you have account managers or relationship manager, and they will be able to provide additional advisory to give you some guidance. These things tend to be quite tailor-made. It has to be suitable for you. It has to be fit for purpose. So I think that's why it's important that in addition to sitting down and doing the actual plan, that you engage with a financial expert that can also help you with executing on your plan. So I think that brings me to the end of the presentation. Taiwo, I'll hand over to you so that perhaps we can take questions and be able to provide answers at this time.
Thanks a lot, Ruby. That was quick, sharp, and rather insightful. We've got a ton of questions here. I want to start with our audience, our viewer from Asaba. And he says, can I be given a startup loan since I have just opened a corporate account with Stanbic IBTC here in Asaba with my business name?
Okay. I like this question. I like it a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people are also thinking the same thing. I'll start out by saying that Stanbic IBTC is very, very deliberate about our engagement with startups. Very, very deliberate. And one of the things that we've realized with startups, because I think the question was, can he be given a loan?
Yes.
One of the things that we've realized with startups is that one of the factors that causes them not to do very well, I know a lot of people, if you were to ask, the first thing they would say is access to funding. But what we have found is even when funding has been made available to some startup companies, they've not been able to manage them well. They've not been able to use them to achieve the outcome that they require that funding for in the first place. And so we dug a bit deeper. We dimensioned it to say, what exactly is it that we can do to support startups so that their likelihood of surviving is significantly increased. And we found that it's in capacity building. And so in our bid to support startups, right, what we do is we have partnered with Lagos Business School, and we do that to offer our startups capacity building in a number of areas, including business planning, business process optimization, cash flow management, very, very important, how they can do competitor analysis, even marketing. You find that a lot of these companies perhaps don't have the expertise to be able to effectively and efficiently market themselves and position their offering in such a way that they can get, maximum patronage. We also take them through human resource management and other things. I remember a colleague was sharing with me that when they were having one of those sessions, they were talking about insurance. And I just spoke about insurance a few minutes ago. And a lot of these companies didn't realize that with as little as 15,000 to 20,000 Naira, they can get some level of insurance to cover their business. And so these are insights. These are financial education tools and educational tips and tools and techniques that can equip them so that they are able to run their businesses in a sustainable manner. It is only after you've been able to go through that kind of, training and awareness program, then the next thing is then you have to put a very solid plan in place, and you have to have the right structures. So again, the truth is access to funding can always be achieved. That's why the banks are there, and we're there to support, and we do provide lending support to startups, we provide to small businesses, we provide to medium size and to large corporates as well. We definitely do. But before you jump into accessing funding, it's very important to ensure that you have the right understanding in terms of, expanding your capacity for understanding a lot of these key things that I mentioned. It's also important to ensure that you have the right structures in place in your business. You have the right people to deliver on the right roles. Very important things. And each of these things, when well taken into consideration, it's then evident that that business has everything that it takes and it needs in order to be able to run sustainably, then we can talk about funding. And like I said, we are able to lend to you. You are an existing customer. Once we can confirm that all of these things are in place, then that's definitely something that you can avail. We can avail to you. I hope that answered the question.
I hope so too, because the next one is almost on the opposite end. Somebody completely disagrees with you and wants to know why is support for small business in Stanbic not a priority? The process to accessing and requirements are discouraging.
So I think, without repeating everything that I said before, it would be important to look at the specifics. It ends up boiling down to each individual business idea. It's not really just about saying, oh, I'm running a business. There's so many businesses. Especially when you count the micro SMEs, the SMEs, over 37 million of them in the country, and growing. Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. And so you find that there are a lot of business ventures. But think about it. If a bank or anybody is going to finance, because you can raise money through different means. You can also raise through your family, your friends. And when you go to raise funds, what they want to see as well is that this business is going to survive. This business is going to thrive. And Stanbic IBTC actually partners. We actually do partner. Like I said, we're very deliberate about it. That's why we have an SME business desk that is specifically set up to support SMEs. And what they also do, because we understand the importance of this, we don't just pay lip service to it. We could always just give a loan and then insure the loan and know that we'll collect on it. But it's not about that. We also have a vested interest in the success of that business. And so that's why we take the pains to also offer financial awareness sessions. We run those on a quarterly basis. And I'm sure some of our viewers have participated in those sessions as well. So just to the person who submitted that question, I do think that we are supportive, and I think it boils down to just making sure that the fundamentals are in place, and definitely you can avail yourself of a facility to help you run your business, but to run your business sustainably and successfully.
Thank you for that, Ruby. I think we have, there are a few other questions around funding, but I think you touched on all of them. People who want to know what the funding options are for their businesses. But somebody wants to find out, this is rather practical. So it says, practical loans to cover school fees and other needs in this period. Do you have solutions for that?
Yes, I like this one, especially for parents who are faced now. It's the Easter period is over. So for those schools who are even using the lockdown period and saying, okay, we'll count this as Easter break, all of that is now over. Everybody's back to school. For those whose schools have not yet started online, I know a lot of them have already. And so people have started receiving bills, invoices for this term's tuition. So what we advise is that, again, some of the principles that I mentioned earlier, it's very important that we save deliberately for these kinds of things. Education is one of those top priorities that, when I talked earlier about assessing what is priority for you, what are the good things to spend on, what are the things that you should desist from spending on at this time. Education ranks very high up there. And so the first thing is always about trying to build deliberately to save towards investing in your education, both yourself and for your children. Because education is not only for children, even adults need to be educated. We can always be better, we can always learn more. And then the other principle I mentioned was that if you want to access financing or funding, very well to do. There are many, many people who take advantage of that because that's a way you can actually leverage debt to grow your wealth, right? But you must make sure that you have the capacity to repay. It continues to, it's something that you'll continue to hear me say. And I say that because I believe firmly that nobody really wants to borrow a loan that they do not have the capacity to repay. So at Stanbic IBTC, we do offer the ability to take a term loan, and you can use that term loan and agree on your repayment amount. We phase it out over a period of time that is comfortable for you in terms of the tenor, and you're able to take the loan. You can put it towards your education, you can put it towards any other pressing need, provided that you're able to demonstrate that you have sufficient cash flow to support the repayment of that loan. Everything kind of ties in hand. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there's the benefit of the credit bureaus who give an overall perspective of a person's credit score or credit performance. That's why it's very important that no matter which loan you take, whether it's credit card or a personal loan or whatever, that you service that loan satisfactorily. Because there's nowhere you can run and hide. If you take a facility from one financial institution, you go to another one, that other one will become aware of it because regulation has kind of opened those things and laid them to bear. So just to recap again, yes, you can you can get access to a facility that will enable you to take care of your educational costs. You just need to make sure that you have the capacity to repay on it.
Thanks for that clarity, Ruby. Somebody wants to know what Stanbic has done to support its customers during COVID-19.
I like the question, and it's a great question. One of the things that we must not lose sight of during this time is that we are living in unprecedented times. That's the truth. I don't think any of us has seen this in our lifetime, at least. We're now hearing about what happened, the last pandemic, which was about 100 years ago. The truth is that this is a very difficult time. I made reference earlier to confirmed cases of people who have been infected with this virus. That's here in Nigeria. Globally, the numbers are even more alarming. Besides that, we've had people who have died. We have lost real lives. And I happen to know people who have lost people that are very close to them. So it's very real. So I think at the heart of it all, I think we must not lose sight of the fact that as an institution, we have also committed ourselves to come alongside our customers to show them that we care. We care about them, and we want to do everything in our power to support them through this very, very difficult time. It's very challenging. There are people with real needs. I know what I'm talking about. They've engaged and they've come and they've said, these are some of the challenges that I'm facing. And so what we have done is we're working with customers. We're staying very close to our clients to see what the specific challenges may be for them and to provide support for their specific needs. But we've also said, you know what, in line with the new social distancing practice, we don't want people to still keep having to come into the branches to conduct their financial affairs. And so what we've done is we've made sure that our online platforms provide an avenue for people to continue to transact with us, to continue to send their payments and make payments as they need to. We even have an end-to-end digitized platform that we call our At Ease wallet. And I tell you, At Ease wallet is, if you don't know anything about it, I'll encourage you to go out to the App Store and download the app. What it allows you to do, you download that app and it allows you to set up a wallet. Your account number is your phone number. So you don't have to memorize any new account number. Your account number is your phone number. You download the app, you set it up within minutes, end to end, your account, your wallet is set up. What that does is it allows you to transact safely from the comfort of your home. And it serves as an account, right? At this time, it's a tier 1 savings account. So it allows you to do transactions up to 50,000 Naira, and you can keep amounts up to 300,000 Naira. And there, if you want to then convert that into a regular account, we can always do that as well. Proactively, we've also offered our clients, because we want to encourage them to onboard onto digital channels, also for their safety and convenience. We offer them free transfers on their first 5 transactions whenever they come onto the platform, just so that we can ease them into it. We've said, listen, you know what, for free. Your first 5 transactions for free. And we continue to offer other such options. We have our USSD platform. Again, it's about driving ease. It's about making sure that this thing is inclusive, even for those who may not be banked. And so our USSD option, which is our *909#, We also run a promotional that allows people to enjoy additional airtime so that people can remember *909#. What we do is on the 9th of every month, between 9:09 a.m. and 9:39 a.m., and then between 9:09 p.m. and 9:39 p.m. Any airtime top-up that you do between those times, we will top up with an additional 90.9% of airtime. So you can imagine if you load about 50,000 in your Artis wallet account and you do an airtime top up of 50,000, we'll almost double it. That's, we'll get an additional 40-something thousand naira. But those are some of the things that we've done just to encourage customers to onboard easily, to be safe while they're doing it and still be able to transact as they need to during this COVID period.
Okay, thanks for that, telling us about some of the things that the bank has done during this period. Somebody wants to know how they can make money through the bank during this period. Is it possible?
Do they want to come and join our workflow?
Are you recruiting?
They should send in their resume to HC, our human capital team, and I'm sure we'll be willing to take a good look at it and bring them on.
Okay. How best can we prepare for the post-COVID-19 economic meltdown? I know you mentioned a few things earlier during your presentation. Do you just want to highlight a few of them again?
Okay, so just a recap, and again, I don't think you can overemphasize this because it's just very important. So I think the first thing is everybody needs to reassess their spending habits. There are things that we've been buying. I don't want to mention things because everybody's pocket and what they're able to afford is different. But there are some things that perhaps you have indulged in the past. It is no longer your reality. You need to look at cutting those costs significantly. Right? This is really about survival. We don't know how long the aftershocks or the aftermath of this present crisis will be. So it's all the more important that you want to be as prudent as possible, and I'll use the word frugal as possible at this time. So the first and most important thing is you need to assess your current spending habits and eliminate totally any unnecessary spending. The next thing, like I said, is that you also need to then put a plan. Be very deliberate. How much have you saved thus far? How much do you have in terms of liquidity? And you want to protect your capital as much as possible. Right? Now is not the time to go spending frivolously. And there are decisions that you may have taken in a pre-COVID world. Now you have to reassess those decisions. You have to review those decisions in light of the new reality. That's just what it is. And then the third, like I mentioned, is to identify opportunities. The truth of the matter is that when you have pandemics, and history has taught us this over time, when you have major economic shocks, or you go through a period of depression, wealth does not evaporate. What happens is that it moves hands, it transitions from one side to the other. Without mentioning names, many of us have heard of an oil company whose value right now is lower than the value of an online media company. In a few short weeks, this has happened, right? So it's important that you follow the money. Follow the money. See where the opportunity has moved from, see where the opportunity has moved to, and see if you can capitalize on that opportunity. And then it's also important to retool ourselves. We can never be everything. We can't know it all. But I think there's always room for us to expand our capacity for understanding, our capacity to deliver value. This is a time of rediscovery. A lot of people are using this time wisely to look at their skills, to assess the things that they do naturally that others may struggle with, and to see how to monetize those things. I'll say very quickly that I envision that in a post-COVID world, even employers will be faced with the reality of relooking the job functions of their employees. Yes? They're going to have to reconsider if they need those employees in a full-time capacity and if they need all of them. So what I envision will likely happen, maybe people might want to only use the option of retrenchment as a last measure. So they may possibly consider reducing the number of hours that that employee works for. So if your employer were to approach you and say, you have 20 hours to deliver on this job because it's really not that much. You were getting paid for 40 hours before because that was the norm. But now I really need to streamline what you're delivering, and 20 hours should be sufficient for you to deliver this work package in. Now, what that does for the employer is it reduces their cost for that resource, that staff. And it also then frees up the staff. It gives them 20 working hours in a week that they now have to find another way to earn. What better way than to find a skill, or to hone a skill that you have had? Perhaps you haven't just sharpened that skill in a while. Now is the time to sharpen your skills and then to make yourself available so that you can earn both on the 20 working hours that your current employer has advised you of, and you can find a way to earn for the balance of 20 hours that will now become available to you. So I think those are very, very important things that you need to keep mind of. I said cash is king. Err on the side of liquidity. So now is not necessarily the time to go and bury your money in a lot of investment if you don't have the liquidity to do so. Hello, Taiwo. Back to you. Are there any other questions that you would like me to take? Okay, I don't see any additional questions on this side. Hello, Taiwo, are you there? Okay, we seem to have lost him. We seem to have lost him. I think for those of our audience and online participants who might have any questions, please feel free to submit your questions via the online chat, and then I'll be able to respond to them.
Hi, I think I had a power out. I don't even know, something went wrong. Can you hear me?
Okay, not a problem. Yes, I can hear you now, Taiwo.
Okay, yeah, so back, I don't know what the issue is. Yeah, so sorry about that. I'm sure you've catered to all of those. There were a few questions on YouTube that I wanted to deal with.
Okay.
Somebody wanted to know about mutual funds. And yeah, mutual funds primarily. And that somebody wanted to know about. Is it something you're able to talk about? Because I think we have another webinar or something similar later in the week.
Yeah, I was actually going to make reference to that. I don't think that this session gives us really the opportunity to exhaust what we have in terms of our mutual funds. I'll strongly recommend that they look out for the details of the webinar that's going to happen on Thursday this week, and that will address in detail all of our offerings that we have in the mutual fund space. But it's a very important, for me, I think I'd really like to strongly encourage that people who don't already invest in mutual funds consider doing so. I think you can stand to gain some really good yields by investing that way. And it also helps to protect your principal, your capital.
Okay, great, thanks. I saw a few questions here while I was away. I don't know whether you've answered them. One is about, do you know anything about Development Bank of Nigeria? Does Stanbic partner with them? I don't know if you've dealt with that, any of those.
It's breaking, and I'm not really able to hear you. I heard development.
Development Bank. Do you know anything about Development Bank, and does Stanbic partner with them?
Okay, I don't have that answer. I could probably just check and I'll come back to you.
Okay. How about loan repayments? Somebody's asking here about loan repayments. Do you have, I don't know, I guess maybe things are on moratorium. It's not very clear on that, on loan repayments.
The question isn't very clear. Okay, yes, I see that now. How about loan repayments? I don't know if Dinesh Singh wants to elaborate on that. I'm not really sure what the question is. But perhaps if you're asking, what could he be asking now? You said perhaps it could be relative to yes,
Maybe
you're saying loans.
Yes. So do you,
Loans.
I don't know,
Provide any
versus
additional-
loans? The question isn't clear, Dinesh. I don't know if you can elaborate a bit more. Are you asking about new loans or existing loans,
Yeah.
or exactly what kind of loans are you talking about here?
Okay, all right. I think he's provided a little bit more clarity. He says, shall I adapt moratorium? So Dinesh, if you're a borrowing customer, then what I would ask is that you get in touch with your relationship manager or your account manager, and let's have a conversation about your loan repayments. I think that's really the word of advice to everybody. If you think about it, I mentioned at the very early stages of the session that one of the policy measures that the central bank put in place immediately after we saw this pandemic was to provide the option for people to be given some sort of either a repayment holiday or a moratorium, as the case may be, or even the opportunity to restructure their loans. But those things are usually discussed on a case-by-case basis. So what I will ask Dinesh is that you try and reach out to your account officer, and I would advise that you do so quickly, do so as quickly as possible today if you can, and let's have a conversation about that. These are all the things that will help you, even in your personal cash management and your personal finance management. It helps you because you can then plan your cash flow a bit better. The truth of the matter is that people already have obligations that are running, and those obligations are running against their current earning capacity. So if that has been disrupted either by a job loss or it's been disrupted by a salary cut, then you do have to go back and reevaluate your obligations and see what you can move around so that you free up your cash flow to put it where you need, and then you're able to kind of spread the impact over a period of time. When you get yourself back again within the few next months, hopefully, then you can resume repayments on your facility.
Thanks for that, Ruby. Just one last question. So what's the possible business environment, and this is from YouTube, a possible business environment we may expect post-COVID in the oil and gas sector? I don't know whether that's your primary remit, but do you have anything to say on that?
So what I can say is no one has a crystal ball. That's the truth. And the impact of, so there's the COVID pandemic, and then there's also the issue of the decline in the global oil price, which has also had an impact, and a significant one, on our economy. So I imagine that the question is probably more relative to that. But the two actually form what you call twin shocks. And so the outcome is what we have. My view, my take is that within the oil and gas sector, obviously you have the upstream and you have the downstream sectors. The upstream sector, which tends to deal more with the oil exploration and extraction, will probably be hardest hit at the onset. And that's because the demand for oil has dropped significantly. And so there's really no need to go and to keep extracting. So I do expect that there's going to be some impact, particularly in the upstream. Eventually, we could see that also making its way to affecting the downstream sector. But by and large, I think that the real takeaway is to say that for those economies that continue to rely heavily on oil and gas for sustenance and for generation of their income, I think this is an awakening and an opportunity for us to begin to divest our sources of income and look at other areas of the sector that we can grow and be able to get sustainable income from over time. Agriculture presents an opportunity in one of those areas. The manufacturing environment, the manufacturing capacity of the country is an opportunity that we can explore. Our ability to produce locally is also an opportunity where we can explore. Mining is another sector. I mean, I don't want to divulge, I don't want to divert too much from the point that we are discussing today, but there are opportunities that we can begin to, at a country level, explore in terms of sources of income that move us away from primary dependency on oil and gas.
Okay, thanks for that. I was just going to point out also to the person who asked that question that we had a webinar on the 26th of March. It's titled Assessing the Potential Effects of COVID-19 and the Fall in Oil Prices on the Nigerian Economy. You might want to catch that, look for that on the YouTube timeline. The presenter was Akinbamidele Akintola, one of the leads there in Stanbic IBTC. You probably get a bit more insight, a bit more clarity on what you're looking for, on your question from there. Somebody also wants to find out, these are still some questions from YouTube. Where is it possible to do a Naira to dollar transfer on your mutual funds as done in a competitive bank? I don't know if you grab that clearly.
I'm trying to understand the do a Naira to dollar transfer on your mutual funds.
Mutual funds.
I'm not sure that. So I can just provide a bit of context to say your mutual funds, we have the Naira denominated mutual funds and we have dollar denominated mutual funds. If you want to make investments into your Naira denominated mutual funds, then you would have to make your payments in Naira. And then if you want to make contributions to your dollar denominated mutual funds, you need to pay in dollars.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ruby. Thanks for spending time with us this afternoon to talk about financing and funding during COVID-19 and potential and post-COVID-19 as well. It's been very insightful. We've got quite a number of people, tuned in and a ton of questions. I think you did justice. A lot of people have also said that through different platforms. So thank you for sharing some of the insights with us and opportunities within Stanbic IBTC Bank with us here today. Just a quick recap. Somebody did that on YouTube and I like that. Let me just read that out. It says, these are just snippets of what you said, which is reassess spending patterns. The frugal lifestyle is highly encouraged. Protect your capital. Cash is king. Identify opportunities even in the midst of the crisis and then follow the money. So I don't know, does that capture the essence of what you said today?
It's phenomenal. I'd appreciate it.
So I'll copy it and send it to you.
Who did the recap. Very good job.
Thanks for Queen Anne Balogun Ifekoya for helping do that. So the recording will be available for those of us who registered for the session. The recording will be available. Once it's available, you'll get a notification by email, because quite a number of people asked for that as well. You can also go back to the Stanbic IBTC YouTube channel to watch it as well as other editions that we've had. We have another one coming up on the 30th of April, it's in 2 days. That speaks more around asset management and mutual funds for those of us that ask a question. So you should watch out for that as well. Promises to be exciting and interesting. Until then, stay safe and catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.